If you are not willing to be a lone wolf, keep your truth to yourself. There's a strange phenomenon in nature. The lone wolf, the one who leaves the pack, is often thought to be weak, isolated, vulnerable. But here's the truth. The lone wolf doesn't die alone. He becomes a beast that even the pack fears. The question is, why do the most successful men in history walk alone? Lone wolves are often independent, self-reliant, and have strong opinions. They may also be creative, direct, and results-oriented. 1. The lone wolf versus the pack mentality. Society tells you that you need to fit in, that being part of a group is safe, that walking alone is dangerous, and they're right, but not in the way you think. The pack follows. The lone wolf leads. The pack moves in harmony. The lone wolf moves in silence. The pack is protected. The lone wolf is tested. The choice is simple. Do you want comfort? Or do you want power? The greatest men in history chose isolation not because they hated people, but because they understood that real growth happens alone. This is why innovators and visionaries often experience loneliness. It's not because they can't fit in nits, because their minds are occupied with ideas that ordinary people can't understand. 2. Why men who walk alone succeed. Every great leader, every revolutionary thinker, every dominant force in history walked alone. Why? Because the moment you step away from the crowd, you stop being influenced. You stop seeking approval. You start thinking for yourself. Science backs this up. A 2017 study in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that people who spend more time in solitude develop higher levels of self-awareness, discipline, and independent thinking. The lone wolf doesn't chase. He builds. He sharpens his mind. He controls his emotions. And when he returns, he is unstoppable. Take Nikola Tesla, for example. Years working alone, obsessed with his ideas. People called him crazy, but today his name is legendary. 3. The psychological strength of isolation. People fear loneliness. They fear silence. But real men, strong men, use it as a weapon. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, practiced solitude daily, believed that a man who masters his own mind masters the world. And history proved him right. Isolation isn't suffering, it's training. Every second spent alone is a second spent refining your mind, your discipline, and your purpose. And think about men like Bruce Lee. His philosophy was built on self-mastery. He trained alone, perfected his techniques alone, and became a force that the world had never seen before. 4. Society versus the lone wolf. Society doesn't want you to walk alone. Why? Because a man who walks alone is a man they cannot control. The more time you spend alone, the more you think. The more you think, the more you question. The more you question, the harder you are to manipulate. This is why the greatest men in history were always seen as rebels, outsiders, threats. The lone wolf isn't dangerous because he's alone. He's dangerous because he is free. 5. The evolution of the lone wolf. Here's something they don't tell you. The lone wolf isn't always alone. He walks alone to become stronger. But when he returns, he is no longer a wolf. He is the alpha. A lion doesn't need a pack. A king doesn't need permission. And a real man doesn't need validation. He builds himself in the dark. And when he steps into the light, the world watches. That's the journey of the lone wolf. He starts alone. He struggles alone, but when he rises, the world follows. So tell me, are you still afraid to walk alone?